Magandang araw sa lahat. Ngayon ay nasa Module 4 na tayo ng ating talakayan sa Social Welfare and Philippine Realities. In the previous module, we have discussed intersectionality as a tool in understanding social realities. By this time, I hope you have ready assigned case and you're watching this to gain more insights in doing intersectional analysis. Please feel free to send in your questions to the comment section below and I will do my best to respond to them. Your comments or insights will also count as class participation, especially for those who would be unable to join our synchronous meeting. So let's begin. The Association for Women's Rights in Development defines intersectionality as a tool for analysis, advocacy, and policy development that addresses multiple discriminations and helps us understand how different sets of identities impact on access to rights and opportunities. If you remember when we did the Power Flower exercise, we have touched based on our multiple identities as a person that we are basically shaped by these multiple layered identities from our social relations, our economic status, our proximity to the prevailing power within our identity. The aim of intersectional analysis is to reveal multiple identities, exposing different types of discrimination and disadvantage to occur as a consequence of the combination of these identities. But why do we have to study intersectionality? For those of you who attended my SW 120 class, remember how I kept hammering you with understanding the why? That we can never begin threshing out the paano nang hindi inuunawa ang bakit. Just as the personality theories that we have studied offered us a lens in understanding personality, intersectionality offers us a frame in understanding realities. That we can never understand poverty or discrimination or deviance without understanding the several whys, because there can never be a single story of why, and by understanding that each of us are made of multiple stories, we will also avoid making stereotypes or assumptions about a group of people. We can avoid the othering, yung tayo ay tayo at kanila ay kanila, na siyang lumulutang na kamalayan sa panahon ngayon. Because development is not about establishing or maintaining a competitive edge. Sometimes we think of our rights as coming at the expense of other person's rights, di ba? Kaya nga naging patok yung tokhang sa diskurso ng masa. Yung pag-iisip na kung hindi ko siya papatayin ay ako ang mamamatay ay sumasalamin ng mababaw na pangunawa sa tunay na dahilan ng mga suliranin ng lipunan. Pero if we think of development from the perspective of intersectionality, we focus our attention on specific contexts, distinct experiences, and the qualitative aspects of equality, discrimination, and justice, permitting us to simultaneously work on behalf of ourselves and others. At sa tingin ko, it's not even because the current government doesn't understand these dynamics, but because it understands these dynamics perfectly. According to Dr. Curato's analysis on the illiberal responses of this regime, this government taps on the latent anxiety, yung takot ng mga Pilipino which are present but not central, mundane but still worrisome. Which is why a hardworking teacher, for example, won't have any sympathy for a neighbor engaged in drug trade, habang siya naghahanap ng creative at disenteng paraan ng pagkakakitaan. Bakit bumebenta ang pasaway narrative? Dahil maraming mga taong apektado sa kanila sa mga tambay, the good-for-nothing cancer ng lipunan kung tawagin natin, yung mga batang nagbabakal at naapektuhan yung ating pagbiyahe. This government understands that citizens buy into the zero-sum narrative. Hindi political vision o polisiya ang nagluklok sa gobyernong ito, kundi mga pride na sugatan at ego na natapakan. But there is also an opportunity to counter this narrative. How? By understanding what discrimination means. Pero how exactly do we begin? Because we can never really understand discrimination in a vacuum. I think the best way I can put this is by this example. For example, you're a woman. You are vulnerable because your opportunities are a bit limited. It is even more difficult to be a woman if you are a farmer. As a woman, your work is undervalued. As evidenced by the land that is named after your husband, your largely unpaid work in farm labor and food production na counted bilang responsibilidad mo bilang nanay at asawa, and your limited access to productive resources dahil yung lupa nyo nakapangalan sa asawa mo. Mas mahirap if you're old. Your growing physical limitations prevent you from doing the same amount of work when you were younger, even if the burden of your domestic responsibilities remain the same. Sa panahon ng pandemya, bakit lalong matingkad ang eksklusyon na nararanasan ng nakararami. Una, para sa tsoper ng jeepney, gutom at lalong kahirapan ang kahulugan ng COVID-19. We all know that public transportation has not been allowed to operate fully. We see those who do not have private vehicles walk miles and miles just to get to work. And a lot of jeepney drivers have resorted to begging for money or food just to make both ends meet for their families. Gumagawa ng paraan katulad ng makeshift plastic barriers to facilitate physical distancing and in their own way prevent the spread of the disease. So if you're poor, you will likely be more exposed to the virus for the absence of vehicles to facilitate your travel and the arbitrary ways by which policies are carried out and are affecting you. Kung na-factor in sana ang kalagayan ng mga tsuper at ang sakripisyo ng mga ordinaryong manggagawa sa pag-aanalisa ng solusyon, iba siguro ang magiging muka ng mga pulisiya. We all know that public school should have started by June, but it was pushed back to August and later on to October, and no face-to-face learning will take place until January next year. Students will be attending classes online or through answering printed modules. In both ways, parents will bear the brunt of teaching children at home and ensure that they keep learning. It should be ideal, and a lot of people will argue na gano'n naman talaga dapat, di ba? At responsibilidad dapat yun ng mga magulang. But what of solo parent households whose breadwinner is also required to make both ends meet? What of children with special needs who require face-to-face approaches in order to learn? What of families who can barely afford food, let alone an electronic gadget and a stable internet connection? Sa tingin nyo, nakokonsidera ba sila sa mga paghahanda at pagpaplano? Because people cannot go out, those who live in the shanties have to bear the stifling heat inside their homes for fear of being arrested for being outside of their homes. Unlike those in the middle and upper class, the poor cannot afford air conditioning. Ano ang ibig sabihin ng physical distancing sa mga bahay na dingding lang ang pagitan? Kung sumagap ka ng sariwang hangin sa labas ng bahay mo dahil para kang nasa oven kung nasa loob ka ng bahay, pasaway ka na bang maituturing? Middle-class families in work-from-home arrangements have to balance attending to the needs of their children, homeschooling, and doing their jobs. More often than not, women have to balance their productive and domestic responsibilities at home and are expected to be good at them. Tumataas ang kaso ng domestic violence at may ilang pag-aaral na nagsasabi na 35% na mas mabagal ang pagresponde ng pamahalaan sa mga VAUSI cases sa panahon ng pandemya. May pampamahalaang diskurso ba at pulisiya na tumatalakay sa usapin ng VAUSI sa panahon ng pandemya? This is why intersectional analysis is even more relevant now. When we understand how circumstances arising from one's disadvantaged position affect the way we function at work and at home, we can advocate for better policies to improve things and make things easier. Mas responsive na serbisyo na mas tumatalakay sa kakulangan ng sistema at kahinaan ng prevailing power structure at mas nakauunawa sa karanasan kung ang analysis ay tumutukoy sa hindi lamang iisang narrative ng social issues at hindi lamang nanggagaling sa iisang grupo ng tao. The same article from the Association for Women's Rights in Development says that claims fall through the cracks when the full context and quality of the experience of discrimination are not considered. If our baseline analysis and project planning do not begin with a complete picture of the economic, social, political, and cultural situation, then our interventions and programs cannot possibly achieve their full potential. Moreover, what works to advance the rights of some women may not be effectual for more marginalized women. Intersectional subordination is by its nature obscured. It occurs at the margins in complex circumstances. If our analytical methodologies are categorical and top-down and we assume so much on behalf of the people we swear we will protect, we are unlikely to discover the full range of vulnerabilities, activities, and experience of diverse women, of diverse groups of people. But how exactly do we do intersectionality? First, we have to think differently about identity, equality, and power. We cannot talk about identity without also talking about the systems, yung racism, sexism, classism, capitalism, heterosexism, ableism, lahat ng klase ng isms that uphold these social identities. Any plan for the realization of human rights that focuses wholly on identity but does not also integrate an intersectional understanding of oppression is intrinsically flawed. We must recognize identity as an opportunity for dissecting and deconstructing power, not an end in itself. And finally, we have to value a bottom-up approach to research, analysis, and planning. We must utilize the focus on identity as opportunities to ask, who are today's marginalized peoples and groups? Because in the repetition of the question and the willingness to answer is the opportunity for recognizing the nature of power and oppression, which is constant and ever creating new and differently compounded experience of oppression. Lastly, remember that no one is a single story. Insisting a positive narrative or a purely negative narrative is to flatten the narrative and overlook many other stories that formed a person. Sabi nga ng premiadong author na si Chimamanda Adichie, we should not understand the combining of identities as additively increasing one's burden, but instead as producing substantively distinct experiences. If we do this, we have the opportunity to get rid of the patterns of the Tokhang approach to governance. We make the government accountable, and we do not deny people their capacity for storytelling. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this presentation. My final slide is a list of the references that I used in this presentation. Thank you for listening.